In this video, we'll be reviewing the Star Trek the official Starships collection, Tholian Starship 2268 from Eagle Moss. This, like the one I just did previously of the Imorg, is a crew of one. Launched 23rd century, length is 15 meters, not very long. Captain Commander Loskeen. The Tholian Starship of the 23rd century was a highly unusual looking vessel that resembled the tip of a spear. It did not appear to have separate elements such as a command center or warp nacelles, or indeed any of the parts that normally made up the components of a starship. It was nevertheless capable of warp speeds and possessed powerful weaponry. There's the Tholian. The Tholian Starship, seen in 2268, was operated by Commander Loskeen. He, like all Tholians, was non-humanoid, and his face appeared to ripple and change color. This was probably because Tholians required incredibly hot environments to be comfortable, and the shimmering effect was down to the heat aboard the ship. Scans taken of a Tholian ship in 2152 by the Enterprise NX-01 revealed that its interior environmental conditions were set at more than 200 degrees Celsius. The Enterprise found the ghostly outline of the missing Defiant in an unexplored area of space shortly after a Tholian starship arrived, claiming this region belonged to them. Oh, there's the Defiant. Loskeen became impatient when the Enterprise refused to leave an area of space claimed by the Tholians. He launched an attack that disabled the Enterprise engines, but in return, his ship was blasted by the Starfleet ship's phasers. This is, of course, the HD version, the updated effects version of Star Trek. The Tholian ships were just minutes away from completing the energy web when the Enterprise crew managed to rescue their captain. As soon as engineering restored to the Enterprise's engine, it interacted with the interphasic space and threw the ship clear some distance from the Tholian web. As the crew of Defiant had been driven mad by the effects of interphasic space, so too was the crew of the Enterprise. Chekhov was the first to succumb. He was confined to sickbay, but soon there were many other reports of violence among the crew, and eventually Dr. McCoy managed to synthesize a remedy based around a derivative of Therigen. After being on board the Defiant, Captain Kirk and his officers discovered that the entire crew were dead. It appears that they had killed each other, but at first Dr. McCoy could not work out what caused the collective murderous rage. It was only later that it was determined that the interphasic space had an effect on the human brain, resulting in homicidal behavior. After boarding the USS Defiant, NCC 1764, Captain Kirk became trapped in an interphasic region of space. Our universe coexists with a multitude of others in the same physical area, but they are oblivious to one another. However, in an area of interphasic space, two universes overlap, and they briefly become aware of each other. The Defiant eventually slipped wholly into the other universe, but Kirk phased back into our universe and was rescued. All the Defiant. And here is the flyer that fell out. Dear Star Trek Ships Collector, we have some fantastic news. Due to the success of the collection, we are extending to 160 issues. As you can see, I'm up to 131. It's skipped from 129 to 131, but that's okay because they usually catch up for me. They're going to 160, so I don't know what they ended up before. I'm sorry. Here's a sneak peek of the next few issues if you want to keep up to date. Like us on Facebook. Borg Probe, Arctic Explorer, and Warship Voyager. So they're up to 160 now. Like I said, I don't know what they were before. maybe I'll find out and I'll add it to this video. But that's good news. There's hundreds of ship designs on Star Trek, and that you'll never get anywhere else. That's why I do like this collection. It's not, the cheapest, but I do appreciate it. And as you can see, the Arctic Explorer, or Arctic 1 is what they're calling here, is the next one that I'm going to review. So that's good. Keep adding them as far as I'm concerned. Nice graphic there, Eagle Moss. Very nice graphic. The USS Defiant took on a ghostly appearance but became trapped in an interphasic rift. It was phasing into the Mirror universe after answering the distress call sent from the Mirror Tholians. Of course, Enterprise kind of sequelized this episode. Star Trek Enterprise did. It was a good episode. I loved it. They recreated the Constitution class refit or Enterprise. It was awesome. You saw Star Trek Enterprise crew on the Constitution class Defiant, and to me, it worked just great. It worked just great. Red environmental suits. Of course, Enterprise had a different Tholian. So right here, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Designing the Tholian ship, Matt Jeffries. Aboard the Enterprise, there was something called the Jeffries tubes, and they're named after him, the designer of the Enterprise. And here, John Eves designed the Tholian ship for the updated, remastered series for the Enterprise, or Star Trek, the original series. And we went to I would like to go to the Smithsonian and look at their exhibit one of these days. And of course, there's a science fiction museum now. One of the silver LeMay spaceships from the Tholian Web was on display at the Smithsonian exhibit. The costumes were not ready when filming of the episode was due to start. The fact that the suits featured no zippers also meant that the actors had to be sewn into them, which further delayed the filming schedule when they had to take a pee-pee. William Ware Theiss, or Bill Theiss, he designed the Next Generation costumes also, I believe. The original 11-foot model of the Enterprise was restored and provided the centerpiece of the exhibit along with the Botany Bay. They had some pretty nice looking ladies on this series. The Smithsonian managed to assemble an extremely large collection of hand props. The case featured many of the items that were regularly used by the crew. Do you recognize any of those? The needleless hypospray that Dr. McCoy frequently used was among the medical equipment on display. In the script for the original episode of the original series, the hypospray was referred to as the hypo gun, which made it sound a lot more painful. The Tholian face mask or helmet created by artistic contributor Mike Miner was also made into the exhibit and showed what was possible with a little ingenuity. This studio model started out as the Tholian Starship from the Tholian Web, but was later modified and reused as a vessel for Dr. Severn used in The Way to Eden. And the appearance of this ship that we're reviewing was the Tholian Web, which I remember watching that. It was a pretty dang cool episode. And the Borg probe is coming soon. Barbara Babcock provided the voice of Loskin. She's also appeared as Falana in A Taste of Armageddon. Plato Stepchildren. Let's look at the ship. The first thing I want to say is that this is one of those times when watching it on video doesn't do it justice, because this has some substance to it. It feels like it's mostly metal. It feels like a real device or a arrow tip. Translucent parts, as you can see my finger between it. I appreciate that. And as you can see, there is a top and a bottom. And this would be the top. And the finish is very much like rough metal. I mean, don't you love that finish? I know I do. And I've got to say, I don't see any... There's a small bubble there, maybe a paint bubble. I don't see any imperfections to speak of. It's a simple ship, it's a simple design, but it has an elegance to it. I got to say that I'm really digging it. Holding it in your hand makes all the difference sometimes. It's hard to tell, of course, where the Tholian sat or where he occupied, where the cabin's at. And here it is in its base. That's how it sits in the base. It sits pretty good. The nose is a bit heavy, but it sits in the base well. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video.